My fellow Amazonians, this is Dr. Cho Ayaba. Hey, thank you all for yesterday. Thanks to all the actors, the constituent groups, Amazonians in general, for a successful day of resistance. We humiliated the enemy. We made it absolutely clear to the international community that political occupation is defeated, military occupation is doomed, and that if the international community want to stop complaining about little infractions here and there, it is important for them to recognize the reality on the ground. And that for territorialism to become important and for peace, security to be guaranteed within ungovernable spaces, they must recognize that the country they recognize as having right to institutionalizing certain international practices within Amazonia has been defeated. It's important to begin to deal with us as legitimate actors who guarantee securities and provide social services to our people. And I hope that the international community will learn from what happened yesterday and take the bold step rather than keep running behind an ailing and soon to be collapsed regime. So thank you all Amazonians. Don't savor the victory of yesterday and put your guard down. It's time to pick up your guns and mobilize more resources to ensure that our soldiers and our general population keeps the resistance up. The essence of my message today is to address a couple of issues that is coming from the circle of lawyers. I just followed the podcast of DDC Capo, and I'm really shocked by some of the arguments being made by the anchors of SCBC and some of the lawyer Barrister Joyce and the traitor called Fontem, the baby-faced traitor called Fontem, who has been parading himself desperately out here trying to build a constituency to use for his adventure. That is not going to happen. So if he wants to become a journalist, he can join SCBC and continue flexing their muscle as opposition to the national movement of liberation. Now let me state the following. Lawyers and teachers did not start this resistance. They did not. I mean, especially this batch of lawyers and teachers, they didn't. The danger with Africa is that history always starts with some people. Forget about the past, forget precedents, forget the lessons of the past, and it starts with you. You have nothing to learn from the errors of the past or, some of the victories of the past. Everyone always claims to have been the one who started something. That's why they never learn. They never learn. Let me state some basic facts here. And before I move into the facts, let me state some policy positions. As the DDC said, based on discussions with some individuals, we have accepted that Amazonian common law lawyers, can be part of different bar associations, organizations. But we have said they should not take part in elections organized by an occupying state that is committing genocide in our land. That don't take part in that election, you could be members. It's the same kind of decisions we've made with politicians. Don't take part in the parliament of the enemy because you will legitimize. We've given lawyers an exception in terms of participation, but don't be part of the executive. I know they have been manipulating this for purposes of convenience, being held by some idiot sitting in SCBC. But let me state the following. Gorgie Dinka was a lawyer, was the president of the Cameroon Bar Association. So when I listen to Joyce talk about, if they did not integrate themselves into the system, excuse me? Few years ago, lawyers were being harassed on the street, being battered. and we decided that moving out was the solution, and you think reintegrating yourself into it is going, what is it going to alter? But maybe this lesson in history is going to help some of these sellouts, these opportunists, understand a couple of things. And the reason why people engage in deception is because of personal opportunities, is because of short-term conveniences, is because of winning short-term arguments. These mistakes have been made from the Funchals, the Munas, and the others, where you think you can manipulate and simply get your way. People have used short-term manipulations to gain academic positions, to gain political positions. Professor Victor Ngor is an example of somebody who uses his academic credentials to engage in research that affirm hypotheses that were developed simply to be affirmed by politicians rather than scholars. And he gained academic positions based on this, called academic deception. We've gotten students in bachelor, masters being given topics for their thesis simply to affirm the one Cameroon narrative, so that you can infiltrate yourself into academic literature and propagate a myth that is purely political. And all those who produce counter research to show the alternative are either all in exile or probably had no possibilities of publishing them because they didn't have godfathers. So this is how deception has been used all through our resistance against this system. But the reason why lawyers convene the all Anglophone conferences, I mean, I talk about Professor Carson Anyango as a professor of law, Barrister Kontang Elad as a lawyer, and then Dr. Simon Munzo, and even former La Republique Minister of Justice, Barrister Benjamin Etue. These were lawyers. They didn't simply get up one day and said to themselves, as lawyers who believe in constitutionalism and constitutional procedures in altering, the way that you can design a state, or that a state can be governed, and move to convening a conference whose outcome is simply political, out of the blues. They didn't make that transition out of the blues. They made that transition because all attempts at altering the constitution of Cameroon to reflect the reality of its constituents had failed. Professor Carson Anyangwe and others, they designed a federal constitutional proposal to be presented at a constitutional conference that was called by Professor Ewona and Mr. Bia. Once they received that constitutional proposal, they aborted the constitutional conference. These men then moved to convening the all Anglophone conferences because legal means had failed. If they had also learned from Gorgie Dinka, they wouldn't have even engaged themselves in some nonsense about reforming the constitution of Cameroon. Because after Cameroon issued decree 84/02 of 4th February 1984, Gorgie immediately cited Article 47 of La Constitution Federale that basically said any attempt to alter the form of the state by one party, the other party will move in the same direction. So if the Carson Anyangwes and others had looked carefully and said precedence was important, history was important, there wouldn't have been any drafting of a constitutional proposal to alter that constitution. They would have simply walked from the premise established by Barrister Gorgie Dinka. But that's history. They moved to AAC 1 and 2, from a legal to a political solution. AAC 2 was clear. AAC 2 was not a declaration, it was a proclamation. AAC 1 was a declaration, position of intent. This is exactly what our grievances are, captured in terms of socio-economic and political frameworks. Moving to the proclamation, listen, if you do not do the following, we are moving to the next level. Which next level? Back to what the President's Gorgie Dinka had established. A lawyer. What happened? La République did not move. It still entrenched the occupation. It undermined the legal system, the educational system. It did everything to collapse any semblance of Ambazonia as a separate entity. But after 1995, after the SCNC and the SCPC had been put in place, lawyers were still in charge. And they still believed in processes and procedures. That's why they flew to the United Nations. When they came back, they never knew they were dealing with a regime that never blinked. That you escalate, they escalate more. Let me state one other stuff, and this is important. When we took on La République in 1997 and went on the ground, it was in the chambers of a lawyer that we reconstituted, the political structure. In Mutengene, Dr. Yomba, you had myself, Benedict Nwana, you have Justice Ebon, and others. We were convening in Bruno's chambers because they had given up on any legal or constitutional avenue to be used to be able to change, the political destiny of Ambazonia. Where were you people? Some of you were students. Which law books did you read? I'm not trying to undermine, your sacrifice in becoming a barrister or a lawyer. And I know, the premise of your education is the existing law. But there is also, it's not simply constitutional law. It's not simply the basis of your law. There is international law. There's customary law. There are customary practices. There are precedencies. There are super precedencies. These are all sources of law. So to make your source of law, principally Cameroon constitutions, its ordinances, decrees, and stuff, as the basis, the foundation of all of your arguments, it's satanic. And from 1997 until 5 years ago, when you people rose up, it wasn't something new. Lawyers had done it before. Gorgie Dinka spent time in jail. I advise all of you to go to the Human Rights Committee website and get a case of Gorgie Dinka versus Cameroon. Read the merit of that particular communication, and read all the other cases that have been submitted there. Barrister Berumi, who is in Kondenge, has worked on some of these things. Barrister Bobga has worked on some of these things. You people are highly respected members of our society. Now, 5 years into the war, independence reaffirmed, an army established to defend the state. You are making the argument that, if Anglophone lawyers as minorities, we aren't minority. We are the people of Ambazonia. We are not minority to anyone anymore. That died with the declaration of 2017 by Siseko Ayok Tabe. It had died long ago, since Gorgie Dinka made the proclamation and re-established our own independence. Now you are starting a new argument. We have to integrate ourselves into La République so that we can appease them to be able to make some changes that favor us. Well, our forces should integrate into La République military and hope to God Almighty that their presence there will stop the genocide. As though the thousands and thousands of Ambazonians who are within La République military are not Ambazonians enough to influence, the attitude and actions of the genocidaires who are committing crimes in our land. I know you people think you are entitled. I know you people think you can't lose out. I know you people think you can continue to, you must continue to make money. Of course, you need to survive. And that's why we've accepted that, being part of the whole system in order to be able to function within their own courts of law, represent our people in their jails, is critical to Ambazonia. But to make the argument that you need to integrate yourself inside, to alter the attitude of the enemy, as though, 5 years ago, that wasn't possible. And calling yourself minorities is a disgrace, is treasonous. Now, Ambazonians, independence means independence. It means you declare it, you defend it. It means your form of education must reflect exactly what you're fighting and dying for. That is part of the resistance. Being able to even speak the truth is part of the resistance. If you cannot speak the truth, you cannot even defend it. You may articulate the truth without having the courage to defend it. That's understandable. That's acceptable. But to propagate falsehood, to propagate lies in the name of simply articulating a short-term position that benefits a few of you, it's a huge humiliation. So you people should cut the crap. We aren't joking. Ambazonians are not joking. Long gone are those days when you could simply just come on the air as a lawyer and your position or your articulation is seen as God sent. People have access to alternative foundation of knowledge. People can read. People can make research. Gone are those days when you could simply think because you are a lawyer, you are a professor, you are a doctor, you are a teacher, you are what? Your position is so sacrosanct that it's uncontestable. So I call on all those lawyers who are still contemplating, who have been propagating the narrative of legitimization, that you are putting yourself against the aspirations of the Ambazonian people. And we will arrest you. We will arrest you. There is only one opinion in Ambazonia, one, that of independence. Any other position is entrenching genocidal colonialism. If La Republique's position was peaceful, that those who articulate position for decolonization were not in jail or in the grave, you could articulate your position for an outcome that is inconsistent with that of the majority. But if the majority do not have a right to articulate a position, they find themselves in jail, underground, in the bushes, you cannot articulate a position that reinforces, that pushes the people underground in jail or in their graves. Independence means independence. We are never going to be part of La Republique. So if anybody is sleeping and thinking that you can simply just tiptoe into integrating yourself into the enemy's camp, use propaganda, or you are afraid to take firm positions that are principled and that reinforces our claim to a sovereign homeland, then you are joking. Then you don't understand that men and women have been in the bushes for the past 5 years. That people have lost their liberty because of an outcome which they think must not be compromised. So Ambazonians, we have made a clear-cut position in terms of a political outcome, in terms of our education and schools, and in terms of our lawyers and the issue of law. We have not imposed these positions unilaterally. We have engaged in discussions. We have explained positions. We have compromised on others. in every position we have taken, whether closing schools that are articulating and perpetuating colonial doctrines and using a foreign curriculum and propagating, regime positions, whether it is on the issue of a political outcome, we have engaged in scientific research to establish that majority of our people want independence. Our position is not arbitrary. It is not taken unilaterally. But once we have arrived at a consensus position, we defend it to the fullest. Go for before, for back does not exist in liberation struggles. Blood has been spilled. People have died. Liberties have been lost. What we have agreed to defend, you are not going to compromise for short-term political conveniences. And this must hold true for Amazonian lawyers. God bless you all.